What up, Fight World? It's your boy E going back with some more boxing. Now, one thing I love about big fights is you get to hear and see a lot of footage covering it. Media days, just a lot of interviews, photos, and this is what really keeps the sport growing. Not only the big fight, but everything surrounding the big fight. As you guys know, Cotto's fighting. It's a redemption fight. It's called Cotto Reloaded, and we'll see what he brings to the table with a new trainer and a new opponent. So Bob Arum has recently done a ton of interviews, and I've been catching up on him, just seeing what he has to say. Obviously, this is a top rank initiated fight, so he's just talking, doing his interviews, talking to the cameras, and he did say something interesting I wanted to share with you guys. And he basically compared Terence Crawford and Adrien Broner, and said if the choice was his, he would go with Terence Crawford in terms of a more skillful fighter. Here's the direct quote from Bob Arum himself. I think there's a tremendous upside to Terence Crawford. All right, I'm not going to read it in the Bob Arum voice. So he said, I think there's a tremendous upside in Terence Crawford. And if I have my choice between two fighters, Adrien Broner or Crawford, I would go with Crawford. I think he's more talented and certainly more dedicated. I think we have a whole history of fighters that conduct themselves like gentlemen, and yet we're able to monetize their athletic performances. Miguel Cotto, Manny Pacquiao is another. You don't have to act like a jerk in order to make money. So, I want to get your feedback and hear what you guys have to say. My thoughts on this particular comment: he's a promoter. He's going to obviously cater to his fighter. If he was managing Broner and not Terence Crawford, I guarantee you it'd be the reverse of what he just said, because you have to protect your investment. He has his stakes set with Terence Crawford, who is a hell of a fighter and looks like he does have a tremendous upside and has the potential to be somebody. If you follow Terence Crawford, I talked about him before the Bradis Prescott fight. I just seen some tape of him. He beat Danny Garcia, who is now the 140-pound king. He beat everybody. Either Danny Garcia beat them himself or he beat the guy that beat them. So he didn't fight Lamont Peterson, but he beat the guy who beat Lamont Peterson in 3 rounds, which was Lucas Matisse. So Terence Crawford in the amateurs beat Danny Garcia. So the kid, he does have talent. But again, I think a promoter is going to be a promoter at the end of the day. So they're going to capitalize and say what the fans want to hear regarding their fighter. I've yet to hear any promoter talk about another fighter with more respect than their own fighter. Like, I can't picture Bob Arum saying, like, Broner's way better than Terence Crawford. I mean, why would he? He's shitting on his own fighter. And the only time I've really seen Arum shit on his own fighter is people like Rigondeaux or Bradley or somebody who dethroned his cash cow. So it's all about money. As far as who's more skillful, it's really, really hard to tell. Terence Crawford, I really like him as a fighter, and I'm not trying to have this black on black crime. I think they're both good fighters. It's clear to me, one thing that he said that is clear is Terence Crawford does conduct himself in a different, completely different manner than Adrien Broner. Adrien Broner, he's posting pictures getting head by 2 chicks and eating strippers out, getting arrested for fighting in Miami, saying crazy stuff, acting pretty outlandish and over the top, and it's the kid, man. It's AB, always about business. Like, I mean, you guys know how Adrien Broner does. So that is the definitive difference. I mean, you can't really dispute that. It's a clear and concise contrast between a Terence Crawford and an Adrien Broner. Adrien Broner is way more showy, but this is the hurt business. This is the fight game. You really don't know skill for skill until like they were to fight or something like that, or unless we keep seeing them continue to fight and see how they end up against different styles and stuff like that. As of right now, in my honest opinion, I think Adrien Broner has a more impressive resume. I mean, he's moved up 2 weight classes, fought Paulie Malignaggi. I thought he definitely did enough to beat Paulie Malignaggi. He didn't look as impressive as some people would have liked. A lot of people thought he would stop Paulie Malignaggi, but you got to give the man credit. He's a veteran and he has a chin. So just those 2 things considered, a younger fighter not being able to stop him, it doesn't mean he's trash or whatever some of you guys are writing on the boxing forums. I don't think Broner's trash because he couldn't stop someone who's who's never really been stopped in terms of a KO. Malignaggi has been TKO, but he hasn't really been just knocked out cold that I remember. Um, and he jumped up 2 weight classes, so I think credit has to be given. As far as Terence Crawford, hell of a talent, hell of a fighter. He's blossoming, but I don't think his resume is better than Broner's as of right now. Whether you like it or not, Broner did beat Ponce de Leon, and at least on paper, whether you think Ponce de Leon beat Broner, gave him a tough fight or whatever, on paper as it sits, Broner has the victory. He also beat Antonio DeMarco. He moved up to a weight class, 135, and Antonio DeMarco was the top dog. He had just dethroned or stopped John Molina inside of 1 round, had a hell of a performance, and Broner moved up in weight and made it look like easy work. He was chopping DeMarco up in the inside round, and a lot of people that hate Broner, it's funny, the fighters who some of you guys hate, you only reflect on the negative. Like, in terms of Broner has a less than stellar performance against Daniel Ponce de Leon, or it doesn't make it look like easy work. You bring that up. Yet, he has a tremendous performance against Antonio DeMarco, someone who I thought was going to give him a tougher challenge. I had Broner winning, but I thought DeMarco was definitely going to make Broner work and not make it look as easy for Broner to beat him. And as a fighter who's never been stopped in that manner, even against Edwin Valero, he didn't get stopped in the same fashion in the middle of the round, like Broner stopped him. But that goes out the window for the Broner haters, the people that don't like Broner. They don't bring that up, but they'll bring up Ponce de Leon or the Malignaggi fight, the Paulie Malignaggi. I don't know what I just said, but the Paulie Malignaggi fight. So it's like some of you guys have selective memory. Me, I try to give a broad overview. You got to give him credit for what he has accomplished. That's the bottom line to this. I definitely think he has a better resume than Terence Crawford as of right now. Terence Crawford has some great performances. His performance against Sanabria seemed like a game contender, made him work for it, and he did what he had to do. But in terms of comparing where they've been and who they've beat as of right now, not considering the amateurs, I think Broner has a more solid resume and more accomplishments. I mean, I don't know who's younger. They're both pretty young, but I think Broner just has the better names. Jason Litzau, at the time when Broner fought him, was a top contender. He was top 10 for sure, maybe even top 5. I'd have to do some research. So, in in response to Bob Arum's statements about Terence Crawford or Adrien Broner, it's very hard to tell. Adrien Broner is definitely more showy, flashy. He sometimes allows himself to get hit. Or I don't even know if it allows. Sometimes he does get hit for whatever reason, trying to make the fighter, trying to showboat or whatever the situation is. Terence Crawford is a lot more mindful. So stylistically, it's very hard to compare the two. Hopefully they can fight at 140, maybe 135 if Broner feels he could still go back down. And then we'll see what happens between the two. But they're both skillful. That's really all I got to say. Of course, the promoter's going to choose his dog and pump him up or talk about him. And I'm not saying that Crawford doesn't deserve to be pumped up, because at the end of the day, like I said, do the history, do the research. I made a whole video, I think like at least two videos about Terence Crawford and what a talent he was, how he reminded me of like Pernell Whitaker, and a lot of people didn't give him that much credit for beating Bradis Prescott. That's a puncher. He took that fight in like 2 weeks notice and moved up in weight and made Bradis Prescott frustrated. Bradis Prescott looked like a rookie, like he didn't know what to do. And then you seen Bradis Prescott, look at it, versus Mike Alvarado. Look at him, who he fought not too much. He opened up a bad cut on Alvarado, and it looked like he was going to stop Alvarado, who was undefeated. So for Terence Crawford to make Bradis Prescott look like easy work, and he was moving up in weight, he took the fight on last minute notice. That's a hell of a fighter, and that's impressive. So I like Terence Crawford a lot. It's just a huge contrast, like in terms of everything, personality, the way they fight. They are different fighters, so it's hard to compare. I have to see more from Terence Crawford and see how Broner continues to fight to to really assess who's the better fighter, who's the more skilled fighter. I think they're both talented, they're both young, and they both have a lot of potential. So we'll really see what happens and what unfolds as their journeys continue. So let me know what you guys think. Terence Crawford versus Adrien Broner. Just don't be so cliche, I guess you could say. If you say Broner's whack or he's weak, and in comparison to Terence Crawford or whatever, support what you're gonna say. Tell me why he's weak or why Terence Crawford's better, vice versa. If Terence Crawford's whack, tell me why. Don't just say, "Oh, Broner sucks because he eats strippers' ass." I don't give a fuck about that. Because in the middle of the ring, him eating a stripper's ass and having stripper ass breath doesn't have anything to do with his fight game. So stick to boxing when you're talking about your points as to why someone's good or not. And that's really all I gotta say, guys. As always, hate, comment, or subscribe. Till next video, it's Ego signing off.